One crisp morning, a bright polka-dotted van sputtered and squeaked its way into the sleepy town of Maplewood. This van was no ordinary vehicle, for it was the traveling home of Mr. Giggles the Clown. Mr. Giggles had candy apple red hair that sprang out from beneath a tiny top hat and a face perpetually set in an exaggerated grin. He had a voice that was somehow both squeaky and booming, and he had a knack for turning any situation, no matter how dire, into a stage for his personal brand of balloon-based heroics. Maplewood was a pleasant enough place known for its tidy main street and centuries-old clock tower. Yet as soon as Mr. Giggles parked his van outside Maplewood's only hotel, he sensed the tension in the air. Townsfolk bustled about with long faces. A farmer argued with the mechanic outside the repair shop. A painter stood on a ladder muttering angrily while examining the peeling facade of a Victorian house. Even the children passing by wore glum expressions, as though the usual carefree spirit of youth had been replaced by the dreariness of adult worries. None of this bothered Mr. Giggles in the slightest. In his mind, every problem was nothing more than a balloon waiting to be twisted and shaped into something magnificent. He hopped out of his van, adjusted his suspenders, and greeted the first wide-eyed bystander with a dramatic bow. "Don't fret, my friend," he declared. "Your dependable clown has arrived, and I bring solutions of the most inflated kind." He winked, and the bystander, a bewildered elderly gentleman, offered only a slow nod. Mr. Giggles hummed merrily, rummaging in the back of his van until he retrieved a fistful of brightly colored balloons and a handheld pump. "Now, who here needs some cheering up?" he asked. "Better yet, who needs a problem fixed?" As if on cue, a worried pet store owner rushed out of her shop. "Are you good with animals?" she asked, wringing her hands. "My brand new display stand keeps collapsing. I keep rearranging the pet food, but it won't stay intact." "Fear not," Mr. Giggles exclaimed. "Show me this contraption, and I shall balloonify a solution." Inside the Mata shop, cat toys dangled from hooks and hamster wheels lined the shelves. The culprit stood in the middle, a flimsy wooden display with one leg shorter than the other. Mr. Giggles bent down, examining the wobbling stand as though he were a seasoned engineer. He measured angles with an invisible measuring tape and nodded gravely. "I see the problem," he said. "It needs a stabilizing force. Normally, you'd want an extra piece of wood or a wedge. But have you tried a balloon foot?" The shop owner blinked. "I can't say I have. Allow me to demonstrate." He pulled a gray balloon from his belt, puffed up his chest, and set to work, inflating a shape that resembled a mushroom and twisting it into a balloon foot. "We place it right here beneath this leg foil. No more wobble." With the balloon foot nestled beneath the uneven leg, the display stood perfectly still. The shop owner tentatively placed a few cans of cat food on the stand, and they sat without tipping the whole thing over. She gasped. "It worked!" "Of course it did," Mr. Giggles said, flashing a grin. "Balloons can do anything, and they always bring a smile." She thanked him profusely, offering him a small tip. But Mr. Giggles refused. "No payment needed," he said. "My payment is your happiness. Though I'll never say no to a fresh banana if you've got one. They pair nicely with clowning, in my experience." The next challenge arrived swiftly. Maplewood's librarian, Miss Thorncrest, hurried over. "Oh, Mr. Clown, thank heavens you're here," she said. "We're in the midst of a crisis. My entire library is besieged by squeaky shelves. They won't stop squealing whenever anyone grabs a book." Mr. Giggles bowed with unusual stiffness, as if he were a knight given new orders on the battlefield. "Squeaky shelves, you say? I have just the method. Onward." In the library's grand reading room, the slightest nudge of a shelf caused a high-pitched squeal that echoed through the quiet halls. Patrons covered their ears in agony. The shelves were tall, stately structures made of beautiful old wood, but the dryness had set in, and the joints were rubbing and complaining with every movement. Miss Thorncrest eyed Mr. Giggles warily. "Usually I'd try an oil or a lubricant, but the manufacturer says that might damage the wood. I'm not sure balloons—" Mr. Giggles interjected. "That's where you must trust the clown. Behold!" He snatched a long black balloon and inflated it to a quarter of its capacity, then deftly tied off the end. "We'll create balloon pads. Exactly what these squeaky shelves need to maintain a bit of cushion. He slipped the balloon between two wooden joints at the base of the shelf. Then, with purposeful gentleness, he wedged small segments of balloon between other squeaky points. The squealing quieted down to a faint squeak, then stopped entirely. The room fell into a blissful silence. Miss Thorncrest's eyes gleamed. "You fixed it?" she whispered, as though one loud word might bring the squeaks back. "You bet your library card I did," Mr. Giggles said, giving her a soulful wink. "Balloon power is unstoppable." He left the library to a polite wave of astonishment. People outside had already begun whispering about the clown who solved everyday problems with balloon sculptures. Some residents were charmed, but others cast suspicious glances, certain that this was all too strange to end well. Then came the breezy afternoon, and with it a crisis at Maplewood's beloved clock tower. The large wooden door at the base of the tower had swollen with humidity over the years, rendering it nearly impossible to open or close without a significant amount of shoulder barging. The caretaker, Mr. Blythe, huffed and puffed against the door in exasperation as Mr. Giggles arrived, carousel music practically playing in his wake. Mr. Blythe gestured helplessly. "I can't get it open without risking a cricked back. We used to have a proper handle, but it broke off last winter. I keep meaning to get it repaired, but, well," he trailed off guiltily. Mr. Giggles took precisely 10 seconds to examine the door. Then he snapped his fingers. "We attach a balloon handle, simple as that." "A balloon handle?" Mr. Blythe repeated incredulously. "Precisely. I've just the design in mind." He rummaged through his stash and pulled out a thick, red balloon. After inflating it to a plump shape, he twisted the balloon into several loops and turned them into a sturdy ring. He then taped the ring securely to the door, creating a handle. People on the street watched in disbelief. "Now," Mr. Giggle said, cheering on Mr. Blythe, "give it a try." Mr. Blythe gripped the balloon handle, braced his foot on the threshold, and pulled. The door gave a mighty groan, but then swung open slowly, enough for a person to squeeze through. A small crowd broke into scattered applause. "It's not exactly elegant," Mr. Blythe said, "but it sure works." Mr. Giggles beamed, ignoring the bead of sweat that rolled down his forehead. "Balloons are rarely elegant, my friend, but they do carry a certain charm, don't they?" Word continued to spread. By dinner time, Mr. Giggles found himself approached by Maplewood's deputy sheriff, Gina Hammond. She was a no-nonsense woman who brooked no foolishness, and the sight of a clown who fixed things with balloons certainly qualified as suspiciously foolish in her book. Still, she needed help. "The air conditioner in the station broke," she told Mr. Giggles. "The boss says we need to wait for the part to arrive next week. Meanwhile, we're roasting under the collar, folks being held in our well-worn jail cellar complaining, any bright ideas that don't involve me having to become a giant puddle." That was all the invitation Mr. Giggles needed. He marched into the sheriff's station with Gina looking on skeptically. The air inside felt thick, and the dull hum of the broken air conditioner in the window suggested it was very much out of commission. "Balloon fans!" Mr. Giggles crowed. "We can fashion handheld fans from balloons. We can also create balloon curtains to block out the sun, and even craft a balloon funnel for the open window to channel a breeze inside." Deputy Hammond, unsure whether to laugh or roll her eyes, nonetheless watched as Mr. Giggles inflated a rainbow array of balloons. First, he twisted a series of bright tubes into large circular fans. He handed them out to sweaty officers who promptly used them to waft themselves with some relief. Next, he knotted together a curtain-like matrix of balloons and draped it in front of the station's wide windows, hoping to reduce some of the incoming heat. Finally, for a dramatic flourish, he crafted a funnel from two giant balloons stitched together with duct tape, repositioning them at the small open window at the back of the station where a mild breeze found its way inside. "I dub this creation the Clowning Breeze," he said. "Guaranteed to lift your spirits and reduce your temperature by a few degrees. Maybe not an industrial solution, but it should help until that new part arrives." Despite her initial reluctance, Deputy Hammond had to admit the station felt slightly cooler. The combined effect of the balloon fans, the balloon curtains, and the breezy funnel provided just enough relief to get by. Officers grunted their appreciation as they fanned themselves, and even the person in the holding cell, a wide-eyed teenager caught speeding, managed a grateful thumbs up. "All right, you've proven yourself, clown," the deputy said, tipping her hat. "I don't quite understand how or why, but this is better than nothing." Mr. Giggles took that as the highest praise. "Excellent! May your day be lighter on your shoulders and heavier with balloon joy." A few days passed in a flurry of balloon-based rescues, and Mr. Giggles became the talk of the town. He replaced the missing weather vane at Farmer Dalton's barn with a giant inflatable rooster. He concocted a balloon route for a local trim carpenter who needed a temporary bridging for a collapsed footbridge. He even rigged up balloon microphones for the town's community choir after the church's old sound system shorted out. It seemed there was nothing the clown couldn't patch together with a breath pump and some latex. Not everyone shared in the enthusiasm, however. Mayor Wilcox, a tall and dignified man, found the balloon mania borderline embarrassing for Maplewood. He'd lived in the town his whole life, and while he believed in supporting local businesses, he found the sudden reliance on some polka-dotted jester aggravating. "All these balloons around town," he grumbled to his assistant. "They're going to ruin Maplewood's reputation for old-fashioned charm." The next morning, after a particularly strong gust of wind left the clock tower's balloon handle flapping wildly, the mayor spotted Mr. Giggles at a cafe. He marched up to him, chest puffed out. "I can't allow Maplewood to turn into a carnival," he declared firmly. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, Mr. Giggles, but these balloon solutions are, well, they're unsustainable. I kindly request that you refrain from further ballooning so the townspeople can return to normal repairs." Mr. Giggles merely nodded with a bright smile. "I understand, Mr. Mayor. I never want to overstay my welcome, but if I can help, why not let me do so?" The mayor folded his arms. "Because your solutions might break or prove unreliable in the future and will be left in worse shape than before." Before Mr. Giggles could respond, a loud crash echoed from down the street, causing both men to jerk their heads. Smoke rose from Mrs. Petunia's candle shop. People rushed toward the building, shouting and coughing. Mr. Giggles leapt to his oversized feet and quickly made his way to the chaos, the mayor trailing reluctantly behind. The scene was dire. A small fire had started in the back room. Mrs. Petunia ran out, her face stained with soot. "The stove I used for candle wax overheated," she cried. "The fire department is on its way, but oh, my store could go up in flames." At that moment, Mr. Giggles threw open his polka-dotted van and grabbed 2 armfuls of thick orange balloons. He inflated them at lightning speed, twisting them into something shaped vaguely like a hose. It was an unwieldy structure, but he seemed determined. Next, he turned to a nearby fire hydrant, rummaging through his toolbox until he found a rubber funnel that he affixed to the balloon hose structure with duct tape. People looked on in disbelief. "Are you trying to make your own hose?" the mayor asked, flabbergasted. Mr. Giggles nodded frantically. Yes, a balloon hose to funnel water into the store. Deputy, see if you can attach the other end to the sink in the cafe across the street. Quick, quick!" Deputy Hammond, who had arrived on the scene, gave the clown a "you've gotta be kidding me" look, but reluctantly, she sprinted off with the free end of the balloon hose, hooking it up to the big industrial sink in the cafe's kitchen. The cafe's bewildered owner watched, too stunned to protest. Meanwhile, Mr. Giggles dragged the hydrant end of the balloon hose into the flaming candle shop. "We'll use the sink's water pressure until the firefighters arrive," he shouted. Miraculously, a trickle of water coursed through the balloon contraption, spraying out from a hole shaped like a monkey's head that Mr. Giggles had crafted. The onlookers could hardly believe it. Though it was by no means a powerful fire hose, it sprinkled enough water to slow the spread of the flames. Sooty smoke stung eyes and throats, but gradually the small fire died down. By the time the fire truck arrived, firefighters only had to douse the last few sparks. Relieved, Mrs. Petunia hugged Mr. Giggles, tearful yet joyful. "Thank you," she whispered. "You saved my shop from being charred to bits." The clown fanned the air with a purple balloon, only did what any caring clown would do. Then he coughed. Might need to invest in a balloon gas mask next time, he joked hoarsely. The mayor, still wearing his disapproving face, quietly asked a firefighter to check whether the clown's contraption had done any harm. The firefighter shrugged. Well, we wouldn't recommend it as standard practice, but I can't deny it prevented the fire from getting worse. Mayor Wilcox cleared his throat. Pickles, we're obliged to you for your quick thinking. However, I just want to remind you again that balloons aren't exactly a permanent fix for everything. We might want to discuss more conventional solutions moving forward. Of course, Mr. Giggles said, carefully rolling up the soggy remains of his balloon hose. He did his best to keep his grin in place, but there was a flicker of disappointment in his eyes, as though the mayor's constant doubt was beginning to rub him the wrong way. Despite the mayor's reservations, the rest of Maplewood was thoroughly enchanted with Mr. Giggles. Children giggled whenever they saw him walking by, hoping for a balloon puppy or sword. Shop owners stepped out to applaud him as though he were a local celebrity. Even Miss Thorncrest put up a small plaque in the library, referencing their squeak-free shelves courtesy of Engineer Giggles, master of latex. Yet, as if to prove the mayor right, trouble came along in an unexpected form. A ferocious summer storm barreled toward Maplewood one evening, bringing with it howling winds, whipping branches, and driving rain. The townspeople huddled in their homes, worried about potential flooding or falling trees. The next morning, the streets were littered with branches, debris, and shredded balloons. Everywhere one looked, fragments of colorful latex clung to fences and trees. People stepped outside to survey the damage, finding that the balloon foot that stabilized the pet store display had popped, toppling cat food cans everywhere. The balloon ring at the clock tower had snapped, leaving no handle. The library's balloon pads had slipped out of place, and the squeaking shelves were back in full force, a chorus of ear-splitting complaint. Even the sheriff's station felt stifling again without its balloon drapes, which had torn away in the wind. It appeared that the storm had spelled the end of Mr. Giggles' creations. At first light, Mr. Giggles sprinted around town in his polka-dotted pajamas, discovering each deflated or destroyed balloon sculpture with distressed disbelief. He tried to salvage what he could, but the scale of the damage was overwhelming. The meteorological meltdown had proven that while his balloons were creative, they were indeed fragile. Mayor Wilcox, flanked by his assistant, found Mr. Giggles knee-deep in balloon scraps outside the library. Placing a sympathetic hand on the clown's shoulder, the mayor spoke softly. These storms can do real damage. I appreciate your effort to help in your own whimsical style. But this morning, we see that we need more permanent solutions. Those balloon fixes were not built to last. Mr. Giggles looked around, seeing the disappointment on people's faces as they swept up the remains of colorful balloon fragments. The day before, he was hailed as a hero. Now his ephemeral creations littered the gutters and stuck to window screens, a messy reminder that sometimes real fixes involve nails and lumber, not inflated latex. Maybe you're right, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Giggles said in a subdued voice. I just wanted to cheer people up, but I never meant to cause extra work. The mayor gave him a soft sigh. Your heart is in the right place, my friend. But Maplewood is a real place with real needs. That said, you did help in some critical moments, and we're grateful. Perhaps we can find another role for you, one that sparks joy without leaving the town in disarray. The next few days were spent cleaning up storm debris, patching roofs, and doing proper repairs. A local carpenter replaced a twisted door handle at the clock tower, a plumber installed a new hose in the candle shop's back room, and the library's squeaky shelves were re-lubricated using a suitable wood-friendly product. All the while, Mr. Giggles remained busy with a different line of volunteer work, clown cheerleading. Rather than attempt balloon solutions for structural problems, he used his considerable comedic skills to entertain and comfort. If the school's stage curtain got stuck, instead of balloon pulleys, he organized a quick clown skit for the children waiting in the auditorium, cracking jokes while the janitor sorted out the rigging. If the blacksmith's horse refused to move an inch, he sang a silly tune and juggled squeaky rubber chickens until the horse whinnied, in mild annoyance and trotted forward. As roofs were hammered and gutters cleared, he pulled out balloon flowers for tired laborers or shaped balloon hats for kids stuck at home on a rainy day. It turned out that Mr. Giggles' greatest gift wasn't in constructing balloon contraptions, but in lifting the spirits of the weary. His presence was a morale booster in the darkest hours of repair and recovery. Townspeople came to realize that the clown's solutions might not be permanent, but his willingness to bring a smile was as solid as steel. Finally, after a month of steady work, Maplewood began to look like its old self. The clock tower door had a solid metal handle, the pet store display was reinforced with plywood, air conditioners were fixed, broken fences mended, and the library's squeaks banished once and for all. As a finishing touch, Mr. Giggles used his balloon prowess to create a festive garland, which was hung across Main Street to commemorate the town's successful cleanup. The mayor, accompanied by a small quartet of council members, took the stage in front of the newly renovated town hall. The entire community gathered, including Mr. Giggles in the front row, wearing a subtle grin. The mayor cleared his throat. "Citizens of Maplewood," he began, "this summer has tested our resources and our patience. We've faced busted equipment, squeaky shelves, broken doors, and even a small fire. Thanks to the dedication of so many, including our new friend here, we have come out stronger. Maybe we learned a lesson or two about the importance of real, lasting repairs." He paused, glancing at Mr. Giggles. "And maybe we learned another lesson about the need for a little imaginative flair. After all, before help arrives, or when supplies run thin, sometimes you have to do your best with what you have. In an emergency, even a balloon handle can come in handy." That comment earned some light chuckles from the crowd. The mayor stepped down, approaching Mr. Giggles personally. "You brought a lot of color to Maplewood, both literally and figuratively," he said, offering his hand. "I was perhaps too quick to dismiss your efforts. Thank you for stepping in, for cheering us up, and for caring." Mr. Giggles shook the mayor's hand with an enthusiastic wobble of his entire arm. "I appreciate your kind words, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for any trouble I caused with my, ephemeral solutions. But I'm relieved to see the town in better shape than ever." The children pressed forward, chanting, "Mr. Giggles! Mr. Giggles! Can we have balloon animals?" He laughed with unbridled glee, rummaging through his clown pockets and producing a kaleidoscope of balloons. Within moments, squeaky rubber shapes emerged. Pink poodles, yellow ducks, green frogs, purple giraffes, as he performed comedic pantomimes and silly jokes for an adoring crowd. The restoration ceremony turned into an impromptu carnival, with people dancing, children squealing in delight, and the older folks nodding in gentle approval. Maplewood sparkled in the late afternoon sun, free from the gloom that greeted Mr. Giggles that very first morning. The polka-dotted clown in many ways had given back more than just balloon solutions. He'd given back wonder and laughter. That evening, as the festivities wound down and families retreated to their homes, Mr. Giggles stowed his balloons and took a quiet stroll around the revitalized downtown. Eerily, it almost reminded him of the first day he'd arrived, except now there was a sense of peace rather than tension. The windows looked pristine, the paint on the Victorian houses was fresh, and the library lights glowed invitingly. He reached his polka-dotted van, parked under a street lamp. A few leftover ribbons from the garland fluttered overhead. He thought about the next town on his itinerary, about new places that might need a dash of jubilant foolishness in trying times. But as he put his hand on the van's door handle, a group of Maplewoodians approached. The pet store owner, Miss Thorncrest, Mr. Blythe from the clock tower, a couple of kids, and even the mayor himself. "Leaving already?" Miss Thorncrest asked wistfully. I usually move on once I've run out of balloon solutions," Mr. Giggles said, forcing a chuckle. "But I must say, I've grown rather fond of Maplewood." The mayor cleared his throat. "We had an idea, if you're interested. The town's 150th anniversary celebration is in a fortnight. Normally, we'd hire some traveling act for entertainment, but we were thinking maybe you could perform? I dare say we have never encountered a clown with your unique approach to bringing joy." The children bounced on their toes, chanting, "Stay, Mr. Giggles! Stay for the celebration!" Mr. Giggles gazed around at the hopeful faces. In an exaggerated motion, complete with hand flourishes and dramatic wiggling eyebrows, he bowed low. It would be an honor to inflate some fun for Maplewood's big day. Overjoyed huzzas greeted his acceptance. The group pelted him with questions about what he might do. A balloon parade float? A comedic show in the park? Could he turn the mayor's top hat into a balloon masterpiece? Ideas tumbled out in a vibrant swirl. With that, Mr. Giggles realized that perhaps his greatest gift wasn't about solving everything with balloons, but rather using them as colorful tools to spark collaboration, laughter, and a sense of playful wonder. And so, while nails, screws, and sturdy lumber would always be the backbone of true repairs, Maplewood found room in its heart for a balloon or two, if only to remind them that sometimes the most important repairs happen not to broken objects, but to broken spirits. He hopped into his trusty van to fetch new supplies, a balloon pump at the ready for tomorrow's practice run of the anniversary show. As he drove off with a jaunty wave, the townsfolk returned home with a sense of anticipation and warmth, convinced that Maplewood could always use a clown who was unafraid to address life's problems, even if only temporarily, in a big, balloon-filled way.